Curtis Davies, great to see you, mate. 20 years ago.
Don't depress me.
Yeah, 20 years ago, part of that Luton team that got promoted from League One. And you've only just retired as well. Crazy to think as well. How's it? Well, let's just start with just retired last season with after finishing at Cheltenham. How has life been since then?
It's been busy. I think any player that retires would like to say that they're busy. I fortunately have. I've signed for Sky Sports, so I've been given a lot of games with the new games contract, the 1,000 games for the EFL. I've been given a lot of games, a lot of Luton games actually. I've watched them 4 times this season for Sky. So in terms of keeping myself busy, that's one thing. Haven't actually missed football just yet in terms of the playing side. They always say the difficult side is maybe the changing room and the banter and stuff like that. But touch wood, I've been all right. Kept myself busy, enjoying time with the family. I'm more of the kids clubs and stuff like that now as well. That I'm kind of the dropper off and the picker upper. But yeah, just enjoying life and trying to seek new opportunities, new ways of learning about different things as much as I can, and just try and make the most of this retirement.
We were chatting before about how quickly a football career can go just like that, and it is crazy that it was 20 years ago that we got promoted with Luton, but it did start a little bit before then as well, didn't it? I mean, I think you were writing to a load of football clubs, and luckily enough, Luton were the ones to write back and say, yeah, come in for a trial, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and this is a big thing I say to any young lads. I said, I didn't have the luxury of coming through an academy from 10 years old where I got the technical coaching and all that kind of that grounding into football. My football was very much Sunday league, played for my district and played for my county, so my district and county level were the higher level of football that I played. But I felt that was almost the best thing to happen to me, because I was able to enjoy my football without it being a career yet. So when I got the chance to go to Wimbledon, I was hungry for it and I was ready for it in terms of mentally. I knew I wanted to be a footballer. This is my opportunity. So I went at it hammer and tong and gave it everything I had. Unfortunately for me, at that age, it was I had growing pains in my hips. So having a 1-year schoolboys forms at Wimbledon, I unfortunately was out probably for about 3 or 4 months with sciatic hip pains, and I wasn't given a scholarship. But I kind of knew it halfway through the season. I've always been quite realistic with when I'd sensed that something's not gonna happen for me. But I was happy to stay there, get the best coaching, the best training I could have, and keep myself to a level. And just in my head, I was like, right, get to the summer, and then I'll try and go on trials. Back then, not everyone had an agent as soon as they're 16 years old, so I didn't have an agent or anything like that. So having just completed CVs at school, being a year 11 and finishing school, going into jobs, the workplace, I knew how to write a CV. So what I did is I adapted my CV to then fit football. So rather than, experience and stuff like that, which I didn't have any of anyway, and education, I had clubs that I've played for, positions I've played, goals I've scored, blah, 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 weight, height, all the kind of attributes that I guess a football team would need to know. And I put these letters together. I was a bit naive because I only sent them to the clubs in the southeast. I didn't want to be too far away from home. But yeah, I sent them to about 30 clubs in the southeast. And fortunately for me, Luton Town and Dean Maastricht were the first ones to come back to me. I think it was 2 days after I wrote the letter. Dean Maastricht called my house back then, called the house phone, and and invited me down for a trial. And the rest is history, as you say. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
And you didn't care at that point who it was, depending on whichever answer you might have got back from any club. You just were desperate to make it in the game. It didn't matter who you were playing for.
Yeah, I always backed myself that, because I'd actually signed up to college. I'd actually signed up thinking, well, if something doesn't come, I've signed up to college. I'll go and play. So I was going to do sports science, IT, and I think one of the things I needed was maybe English or maths. I can't remember to try and get a certain job. So I'd signed up to one of those as well. But I was very much, I'd always been okay at school and did well at school. I wanted to get my education, yes, but I wanted to be a player. But I was very much of the idea, I'll go the non-league route, if I have to go non-league, I'll make it, because I honestly just believed in myself. I believed, having had that taste of county football where I'm playing against these Arsenal boys, these Crystal Palace players, and I knew I was of that level. It's just for someone else to recognise it. So when I got to Luton, and like I say, Dean Rastrick called me up for the trial. At that time, I pretty much could have played anywhere. So when I came in, it was kind of John Moore had said, like, what's your best position? I said, well, my best position's centre back. I said I felt that was my best chance to actually get a contract. I said, but I can play centre mid, I can play right back, centre forward, whatever you want. So at first, John was kind of trying me everywhere. We were doing like 1v1s in training. And I would be like being the attacker, then I'd be the defender, and it was just kind of like I was starting to realise, actually, that I'm doing all right here. I'm doing all right. And then I think if you speak to Kev Foley about this is the big moment that secured me my contract. Is we were playing a game. The league season had started. I still haven't been offered a scholarship just yet. We're getting into September now. Considering I'd been there a few weeks.
So you're 16 at this point. Yeah?
I'm 16 at this point, and we played Walsall away in the Youth Alliance, as it were. And I was on the bench, myself, James Osborne, and Matt Judge. And then basically we were 4-1 down. Us three came on, get it back to 4-2, get it back to 4-3, and I don't know what came over me, but that kind of, not almost a naivety, almost I'm there for myself because I'm on trial. I stepped out with the ball, stepped forward, and then I just remember Marcus screaming, "No, don't shoot, don't shoot!" And then almost like the Vincent Kompany type moment, and I hit one with my left foot from about 25 yards, and it's hit the top corner. I think it might have hit the bar and come down, but hit the top corner. And like we celebrated, and it was gone mad. But then straight after the game, it was kind of like John had said,
"It's not your job."
Well, no, it was like, "Well, you're going to sign for us now, son," and that was it. So it's kind of like, even though it wasn't for my defending, it was kind of that moment where I did something that I think it was more the character that John saw in me. In fact, that I'm a newcomer to this group, and I was willing to have a shot with my wrong foot from 25 yards, and it actually went in. So whilst it was
it takes bravery and confidence to step out and do that, especially on trial when everything is riding on this one game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's always a stigma as well, because I worked at the time, so it's kind of like, who's this kid? Like, send him back to wherever he works. So I worked in Sainsbury's and I stacked shelves. Like, not afraid to say it now. But at the time, I had to pretend to the lads like I worked in a leisure centre, because I didn't want them to be like, he's rubbish. Yeah. Send him back to Sainsbury's. Get him back to stack his shelves. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the stigma. So it's kind of like you protect yourself a little bit. Even though I was confident within the group, you protect yourself a little bit so that people can't have it as a tool to kind of hammer you with. But fortunately, John got me sorted and gave me the contract, and it was the best thing to happen for me. And the way the club went from there on and the way we went was just a great story.
I think Joe Kinnear was probably the first team manager at that time, and I think probably at the end of your second year, I think he would have been let go, and then Mike Newell came in, and at that point there's a transfer embargo. I think behind the scenes was a bit of a mess. Yeah. But for some of the younger lads, it was a blessing in disguise, and I think that season under Mike Newell, slowly, we had to rely on that transfer embargo, had to rely on some younger players, and you came in and did your thing.
Yeah, that's it. I said, unfortunately for our club, we've been through a lot. not just then, the time in between. There's been a lot go on at the football club, but that administration was the best thing to happen to me, and that embargo, because simply, with Joe Kinnear, when Joe Kinnear was there, we were a team that got promoted from League Two. But back then, there wasn't a transfer deadline. So if somebody in the first team had got injured or suspended for like 2 or 3 games, he'd go and loan someone in for a few weeks and then send them back. So it wasn't like he was ever looking at the youth team. Also, I think Joe Kinnear, in the whole time I was there, was probably on the training ground twice.
Okay.
So it wasn't exactly looking at players. It would be down to Mick or Brian to maybe say, "All right, he's flying, let's get him up." So that was always difficult.
Did you feel that there might not be a path for you then?
Yeah, I just felt I wasn't even sure that the manager would have known my name, So whilst I was close to the first team, we used to clean their boots, so you got a close interaction with the first team, and that relationship that you build with the first team, that was excellent. I thought from the management side, in terms of the actual manager, Mick was brilliant, Brian was brilliant, but didn't know him. Didn't know anything about him. I don't think he knew anything about me, so felt like he wouldn't recognise me if I walked past him in the street. So that was always difficult, and it's kind of thinking, well, if it's not going to happen here, just again, my mindset is get your head down, work hard, get the best training you can, and do the best you can, because if it's not going to be here, when you play against Colchester, you play against Northampton, do well against them, and they might come back for you, kind of thing. So that was always my mindset. So I got my head down, and we had the reserve football back then, so it wasn't too bad. So it's kind of like I only managed to play about 2 or 3 reserve games in my second year. But the third year, I'm like, yep, I'm going to kick on and I'll play lots of reserve games, and then we'll see where the manager wants me. Unfortunately, because of the transfer embargo and the administration, the reserve team was then disbanded. We pulled out of the league for money reasons, and it was just down to, well, you're in the first team or you're in the under-19s. And unfortunately for me, at the start of the season, a lot of the time was spent in the under-19s, which, full due respect to 18, 19, if you're the best player in the under-19s, I'm not going to pat myself on the back for that, because I should be. So my level was to thinking I need to be there. I need to get there to improve my game and improve where my standing is in this squad. And another thing for me was Leon Barnett was coming through at the same time, and Leon was a player that was more versatile than me, shall we say. He could play centre half, but he'd played left back for the Rezzies, he'd played right back for the Rezzies, he'd played centre half. So in terms of, if you're talking about taking one of us to go in the squad on a Saturday, Leon was always taken, because he could fill in the different gaps. So there was a point where actually I went to see the manager, and I was again quite realistic in my pathway, and I thought, if we're in administration and you need to either sign me on a pro next year or sign Leon on a third-year scholar for cheaper, who are you going to sign? So in my head, I'm thinking Leon's obviously the obvious choice on £90 a week rather than signing somebody on a pro contract. And I went to see the manager, said, listen, I don't think there's a pathway for me. I think with Leon being in the team, he's younger than me. I said, I personally would like to go on loan to Grays at the time, or Hornchurch. There were 2 teams in for me. I said, and then I can not either do well and you bring me back and I'll play, or I'll make a career for myself at one of those clubs. And the gaffer, to be fair to him, wasn't overly, no, you're going to be in my plans, you're going to be in the team, but he said, you're close enough to it and I need you here, so I can't let you go. I can't, because if I let you go, I can't bring anyone in. So I was like, okay, had to knuckle down, get in the LDV Vans trophy squads at the time as they were, and managed to get my debut against Rushden and Diamonds, all thanks to my mate Sol Davies getting himself sent off, which is unusual for him. So that was it, and then from there you get into that game, and you get that first taste of first team football, and I loved it. It was just the intensity of the game. We were 1-0 up, and it was protecting the lead. So as a defender, you're literally blocks, headers, clearances, and it was just everything that I wanted from a game, from my debut. But then you're wanting more. And this is in November, so it's like wanting more, but you realise we've got Emerson Boyce and Chris Coyne ahead of you, so it's kind of, and then you still got the likes of the Russell Perritts, Dave Baylesses and stuff like that were at the squad, Alan Nielsen. So it was always going to be difficult to get back in. But eventually, come the January, we're down to the bare bones. I think it was Boise that had the suspension, and it was a case of I was the only one left. And if you're talking about auditions as such, it was between myself or Michael Leary in training as to who was going to have the role. Michael Leary was a midfielder, and I was, fair enough, he was older than me, and I was obviously, but I was the actual recognised centre half. And fortunately, they went with me. And then I always say to young players again, is particularly centre halves, if you can get in the game and you almost go unnoticed, that's a good thing. So I kind of had a steady debut, didn't do anything of note wrong, didn't do anything great, but from that I earned the manager's trust. So from earning his trust throughout the rest of the season, he knew that someone's suspended or injured, he'll come to me, and that's what happened. I think I started another 4 games that season, or 3 games I think I started, and came on in another couple. albeit one of the biggest ones, was QPR away. You know, to play in that game, considering, you know, I played at Stockport, first away games, QPR away. You're playing against Tony Thorpe, who's the pantomime villain at Luton Town, and Paul Furlong, experienced Premier League player, Kev Gallen as well. And I'm this young kid, wet behind the ears, still learning my trade. So it was, what an atmosphere. And that was, for me, that was real football then. Because as much as Kenny's rocking, and there's obviously 8,000 odd in Kenny, you go to Loftus Road and there were 20,000 there that day, and you literally, where I'm taking a free kick, I think I played left side centre half that day, I'm taking a free kick and I have to kind of bend my way round so that I can run up to it with my right foot, and I've got people reaching out and saying this and that to me. It was amazing. It was but it's something that, again, puts you in good stead for the future, but not without the hard work of myself, but also like the likes of John Moore and Marvin Johnson in what they put to me and what they instilled in me to start.
A lot to take in there, because I mean there's so much to kind of go over there. I mean, I just want to touch on perhaps just going back to, like, you're writing your CV, you're knocking on the manager's door when you're 17, 18, you're talking there about being composed and trying to get through a game, telling yourself, telling other people now to get through a game and not doing anything. Is this your own kind of, how did you learn these things? How did you just go and do it yourself? Did you have someone else helping? Like, how did you get to be such an experienced head on young shoulders at such a young age? I think
actually going into the game, in terms of as an 18-year-old, going into my debut, particularly against Stockport, where it was like, no, this is the one where I'm actually starting. This is the one where the manager is telling you you're playing. I wouldn't say I went into it like, don't do anything great, don't do anything wrong. It was more just do play your game, and again, earn the manager's trust. That was my thing. If I can earn his trust, I'll have a chance. That was it, kind of. Not necessarily don't do anything. If I could score, brilliant. If I could make some big tackles, brilliant. But don't be overly rash where you think you need to impact the game by making a big tackle and then you end up getting yourself sent off. So I tried to calm my energy and just try to let the game happen, as I would have done in a youth team or reserve game. So in terms of that's kind of what it was. But my grounding and my kind of realism on my position in where I am, so in terms of going to see the manager thinking I'm not going to be part of it, it just comes from working with my dad, but being with my dad from Sunday League all the way to Premier League. After a game, I'd get in the car with my dad, and my dad would say, how did you do? And it's kind of that calm nature of, how did you do? He'd hear me out, he'd have his opinion, we'd have a little chat about it, and then we move on to the next game. But it wouldn't always be mollycoddling in terms of, you know, there'd be times where I've lost a game 2-1, let's say, and I was a striker back as a kid, as everyone was, and I hadn't scored, and I'd be upset, and I'd be like, oh yeah, like, didn't score today. But Dad would be like, no, but you assisted the goal and you worked hard trying to get the team back into it, so don't beat yourself up and pick you up. And then the other side of it is, we might have won a game 5-0, I scored 4, and my dad goes, how do you think you did? And I said, yeah, scored 4 goals. He goes, yeah, but really you could have scored 6 today, and if you weren't greedy, the teams could have scored a couple more. So it's always that balance. So because I was so balanced in every kind of aspect of my football from my dad, it made it easy to accept when things were going for you and weren't going for you. And I think that's what put me in good stead for, like I say, having the mentality of, right, I'm here, fair enough, because I'm the only one left, but it's for me now, because I've always believed I'm at this level, to show it for this one game. If I show it for this one game, the manager will trust me, and as I said, fortunately, he did.
And he certainly did. So going on from that breakthrough season in the first team to the following season, which is the reason we're here to talk to you about today, at what point did you realise, actually, well, I might have a chance of being a regular now? I mean, I think you're 18 at that point, aren't you?
So I'm 19. 19 yeah, because I turned 19 in the March, and because we did a 3-year scholar then, and then as my scholar was finished, basically during this, just before the summer comes up, the 6 of us from my youth team group, my age group, all went in for well, I say 6, it was 5 because Kev Foley already had his pro. And we all went in to get our pro contracts or not, and myself, Robert Beckwith and Stephen O'Leary all got pros, and unfortunately one of my good friends to this day, Matthew Judge and Paris Okai, God rest his soul, didn't get pros. but it was, nobody had a real clue of who was. I think all of us could have got pros. We were all good enough to. I think budgets-wise, maybe wasn't quite the right thing to do, but it is what it is, and we got pros, and then from there, that moment is like, right, Boise's leaving, Boise's going to Crystal Palace. There's no opening. Now, there's still the likes of Russell Perrett, Alan Nielsen, Dave Bayliss at the club, and I think Dave Bayliss was recovering from his Achilles injury, but I need to make it my place. I believe I'm good enough. I believe I'm better than them in my head. Like, even though they've got more experience, I'm better than them, and I've got better attributes, and I'm going to make this my place. So I went away in the summer, and as I did, I was fit anyway, luckily, because I was young, but worked really hard on everything, and then I came back and I was like, hit the ground running, front of every run, like everything you need to do in terms of to put the manager in a place where this kid's been at it, I did. So I did that. But the moment I believed, where I started to actually believe that it's going to happen, is we played Falkirk away in a pre-season friendly, and I just remember the gaffer after the game speaking about the level that we need to be at, the performance levels. He goes, not good, nowhere near good enough. He goes, all of yous except for him, and pointed at me. He goes, this kid is pulling up trees to get in this team. Not enough of you are doing this. So it's kind of like, it was a bit awkward for me because all these senior pros and I'm kind of being highlighted, but at the same time there was a level of, oh, hang on, Gaffer's taken notice. Like, I have been working hard, but that was it. And then from there, again, you start the first game of the season, almost re-earn the trust of the manager in that first game, and then we go on and win 9 of the first 10 games, and there's kind of no looking back after that. The manager trusts you, and not only trusts you, but puts a bit more responsibility on you to help the team and to lead the team. And from there, you start to grow as a man, you start to grow as a player, and you start to, even though you believe in your ability, you start to believe in yourself as an actual fully fledged player a bit more as you get into it.
You kind of, I guess, if you earn that confidence from the manager, especially in front of the first team lads as well, or the senior lads, I should say, you're going to be feeling 10 foot tall, aren't you? Oh,
100%. I think a big thing with me is that I was well respected by the senior pros because I was a good young pro, a good scholar. So I did my boots always on time, made sure everyone's boots were done properly, did all my jobs. I was always very polite. Anyone want cups of tea? So I was always that good pro. But again, I wasn't a robot. I could still have the banter with the first team, but know when to stand off and kind of thing. So they had a decent respect for me as a person, but that doesn't mean that you give a ball away, Nico's not going to hammer you. Or if you don't kick it right for Howie up to his chest, you kick it past him, he's not going to hammer you. So it's kind of that level of, you know him as people, so it's a little bit easier going into that first team environment, because nowadays, you've got separate training grounds and stuff like that. So people, sometimes the youth team don't know the first team, but I had good relationships with them, but it's working out those relationships as a colleague alongside them, rather than the young apprentice that's serving them as such. And that adaptation was key to it, because once you get the respects of the Howies and the Nicos, the alphas, shall we say, in the group, it goes so far, and it definitely made, as you say, made me feel 10 foot tall. And
the ability as well also helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we were speaking earlier, and League One back in the day was big man, quick man. The relationship between myself and Coiney was very much, I am now, but I had to learn from him, very much a head on the stick. Coiney, great footballer as well, but would head anything, head the back of people's heads, whatever he needed to do to win a game of football. And it'd be Coiney goes up for the header, and I cover. So it was always kind of that relationship. So you learn a lot from him, but it kind of knowing your strengths in terms of, actually, I'm quite quick. I'm quicker than all of these lot, even in first team football. And it kind of, you start to believe in yourself a bit more, and then you start to try and improve your game in other areas. You're quick, but what else can I do to help the team? And and slowly, especially playing alongside someone like Coiney, good footballer, you start to learn a little bit more about yourself.
I mean, that team could almost pick itself as well that season. We got off to a great start, and we didn't look back. At the start of that season, was there that expectation? I think we'd finished, 10th or 9th or 10th the season before. What was the expectation? What did you want to get out of that season as well?
I just wanted to play games. I honestly, at the start of the season, I wasn't thinking about promotion. Obviously, you don't want to get relegated, of course, but I was just thinking, play as many games as I can, stay in the team. Didn't have a focus on anything else. That's very individual and very personalised, but that was my goal. Play as many games as I can, and then the rest will take care of itself. So going into the team, and you talk about, you know, the way we started. The first game of the season, I think there were 4 of us that were academy graduates as such. Myself, Kev Foley, Stephen O'Leary, Michael Leary all played. So when you're going into a game with 4 younger players in it, would there have been the expectation of potentially getting a promotion? Whilst we believed in our abilities, probably not, no. And the fact that we've just come out of administration, we've obviously, I think we managed to sign Paul Underwood as one of our signings, but other than that, we signed Ryan Vine on loan, and I think we got Enoch on a free because he came from a university team effectively. So whilst we'd made a few signings, we hadn't made drastic League One promotion type signings. So so it was interesting to get into the season, and then the belief starts to come because of that first 10 games. You know, you start in football, and as I said, like, I just wanted to play, and then you win the first 6 games, you draw the next one, you win the next 3. It's like, oh, we're here now. But then comes the reality check of 3 losses in a week, where, hang on, we've not made it yet. How are these young lads going to react to this? How's the character going to be? How are you going to stand up to it? And I think that was probably the best time for it to happen, in the fact that we'd gained enough of a lead and enough of a foothold in the league that we were still up there. But that reality check of, well, it can come away from you so quickly, that 3 losses in a week, all of a sudden teams the likes of the Hulls and the Brentfords have caught up potentially 7-8 points on you. So that's where it did come in good timing, that you have that first check, because it was all so rosy to start your professional career that there had to be that jolt in the road, and that was it.
Yeah, what was it like for you? Was it a big reality check? Was it like, oh, flipping heck, like,
yeah,
3 defeats, you know, it's probably the first time you've experienced 3 defeats in a row as a player, and you're only a teenager, and
yeah, it was again, it's just because you're riding the crest of the wave and everything seems so rosy. Oh, we're gonna, you know, you start to think in your head, oh, we're going into this game, we're gonna win. We're going into this game, we're gonna win, and it's good to have that confidence. But when you potentially play well and don't win, it's like, well, you're trying to analyse, like, how has that happened? Or you go to Brentford and you play poorly, and it's like, oh, well, we deserve that. Or then you go to Hull and you get beat 3-0.
What was that game like? Because I remember it was billed as a big top of the table clash. I think they took the lead with a bit of a fluke goal from the left hand side. I
think there was a mistake in it. It might have been a keeper's mistake or a defender's mistake. I can't remember. But I do remember the fact that, like I say, going into the game was billed as the top 2 kind of thing, like get us back on track, and you lose that game, they gain the extra ground on you, all that kind of stuff. It's tough. It's tough, but I think coming off the back of the Walsall one, the midweek just before that, that was probably the more frustrating one, because we had Paul Merson playing centre midfield, who was, however, late 30s at the time, who was player manager, and he just ran the show. So I think for us as a group of players saying, well, we're striving to be anywhere near what he was, and he just ran the show, and he's 38, 39 at the time. It's kind of like really frustrating. But it was a really important learning curve, because when we come out of it, we then go on another winning run, and we do really well again. But I think for us younger lads that hadn't kind of experienced that, it was really important that to keep our feet on the ground and don't get too carried away, because the moment you think it's going your way, it can just be taken away from you like that. But I think also it's credit to the manager, because it would have been easy after 3 defeats to maybe say, oh, let's go a bit more experience, let's get a few more experienced heads in there, try and get us back on track. But he didn't. He stuck with us, believed in us, and from there the fruits came from it.
In our first episode of this, Kevin Foley mentioned the fact that after that whole game, watch the video, and these are the bad points, just don't do it again. Yeah. And I mean, as I say, we were joking off air before about how the game has changed.
Analysed, yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, obviously, we'll fast forward a bit of your career and how it's gone in that respect. But how has that kind of changed in that respect? The changing in video, and as the way the game has evolved since you first started.
It's interesting because, again, back in the day, someone would have to wheel in like TV from school, you know, wheel in the TV with a video attached to it, kind of thing, and it was on a videotape, a VHS. To those people that don't know what it is, but yeah, it's on a videotape. So there's no stopping and starting clips so easily or rewinding so easily. The tape would get chewed up. So it's kind of almost any video you had was almost a video nasty, as we'd call it. That usually would only happen in a defeat, really. You're never analysing the great clips when you've scored 5 and won 5-0 against the Bristol Cities like we did. You're just watching it when you've had a defeat. But you watch the game through, and like I say, I think Kev was being kind in saying we analysed the mistakes and we said not to do it again. I think it was a video nasty where we just watched the game and kind of, yes, the mistakes are there, so we do watch them, maybe the goals a couple of times more, but it wasn't overly analytical. It was more just, yeah, don't do this again. This is where we need to improve, blah, 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 and then done. But nowadays, as we spoke about, you know, you'll have an idea of what you've seen in your team as a manager, and you'll say to your analyst, oh, can you put together clips of us losing our ball in the defensive third, or us giving the ball away sloppily, or whatever it is, and then an analyst will put together, be it the 50 clips, and you pick the ones that you want. And then you can manage that in terms of who the player is, whether you want to keep them happy, whether you want to put a little bit of a rocket up them, or and then that's how you do it. Whereas, yeah, back in the day it was very much watch the video, you've lost the game, watch the video, be upset by it, go away, improve on it, and hopefully you come back better for it. But yeah, the game's totally moved on, but that was really important for us because to see it, and again, we didn't have the replays where we can go and download from YouTube or whatever and watch the video back 100 times. If we don't watch it with the club, we're likely not to see these highlights again. So you have to take it in, you have to take stock of it, and then, you know, actually, yeah, I did do that wrong, I'll go again next time. And then that was it. So it was really important to have that little bit of feedback, but also that little bit of a needle where the manager's having a little bit of go at you was probably important, because all he'd done is praise us for 10 games. Now it's important that, yeah, how do you react when he's not with you? And luckily we bounced back from that.
Yeah, certainly did the desired effect. I think we only lost another 2 or 3 games after that in the whole season. So,
yeah,
I mean, it was a remarkable season. I mean, trying to fast forward in my brain of all the matches, but let's get to the nitty gritty of it. I don't think we were playing when we got promoted. I think in the days of when Leicester got promoted, there was a party at Jamie Vardy's house and stuff like that. But you remember those times? I mean, we're gradually going through the season. It's like, well, you're in a position here to get the job done.
I think you get through the 10 games, you're top. You get through a few more, even though having lost the 3, we're top or in the top 2. I think we only maybe come off the top once. I think there was a period. So you're in the top 2 pretty much the whole season. You have to believe that you're going to go up. Like it's not a case of we are going up, but you have to believe that we're there or thereabouts. If we are anything like we know we can play, and the belief in our ability, we weren't fluking it, when we'll go up. So you always have that slight belief. And then it's as you kind of get to 25, 26 games, just past halfway mark, and you're still there, it's like, right, now we're in overdrive to get promoted. That's kind of when it becomes a thing. But it's a strange one, really, that when we got promoted by Hull's result elsewhere, it wasn't really that much of an impact because we didn't have, again, the WhatsApp groups that you have now where it's like we're all celebrating with each other. We didn't have the social media and all that kind of stuff where loads of fans are now adoring us with these messages and stuff like that. So there wasn't as much of an impact.
We're promoted.
It's like, yeah, we're promoted, and it's kind of like, see you Saturday at the game. That's it, because we weren't able to have that interaction with the fans. We weren't able to, you know, I don't live in Luton. I couldn't go out on the streets and be like, I've just been promoted, like standing there like Jude Bellingham in the middle of Luton Town Centre outside the Arndale. So, yeah, so it was just one of those. It was just, we got promoted, we were buzzing, a few messages to each other, of course. But after that, it's like, right, yeah, we've got to win the game on Saturday. We want to win the league. And that was it, get the league won as soon as possible now, because that part, and not to say it was a goal at the start of the season, but once we got into the season, it was a goal. We are now promoted. Let's go and win the league and finish the job properly. And we go and get a result against MK Dons, which obviously we celebrated the fans at home. I remember, there's a good picture of me and Kev. I've got the boat hat on my head in the change room, stuff like that. So that's a nice little picture, nice little memory of that day. And then we go on to obviously St George's Day in Wales, where we secured a title.
We do, and up until that point, you've not scored professional goals, but you certainly marked the occasion with your first senior goal. Must have been thrilled to, because we were 1-0 down at half time, weren't we?
Yeah, 1-0 down. Kev got done at the back post. Got done. Got header over the back of Kev, and we're 1-0 down. And it's kind of like we just had our party almost. It's like, let's not fall off of it because we're now promoted. Like, let's get this going. And I just remember second half coming out, like, got to get back into it. And obviously, there's always an onus on centre halves to contribute. And I hadn't contributed that season. Coiney had, I hadn't, and I knew that.
Did you feel that though? It feels a bit strange though. I know you're obviously contributing because you're part of the defence that's kept so many clean sheets, but contributing at the other end, did you actually feel that there was an onus on you to do that? I
felt it because self-pressure, because I'd scored for the youth team. I'd always scored for youth team, scored headers from corners, scored with my feet, wherever, left foot top corners and stuff like that. But I'd always scored for the youth team, so it was like, for me, it was alien that I'd done 40 games and I hadn't scored a goal. So so it was a big thing for me, and it's not like I was putting a pressure on myself to score, but I really wanted to contribute, and no better time really. I think obviously Holmesy, still in touch with Holmesy nowadays, Pete Holmes, he puts the ball in. I finally make a good run where it's going on my head rather than Howie's or Coiney's.
There's a lot of competition, isn't there?
Yeah. But that's it. But obviously, listen, if I'm looking in the box and I want to put it somewhere, I'm going to put it on Howie or Coiney's head, of course. But I made the run towards the front post, almost like a standing header, head it down into the ground, and it goes past Ben Foster in their goal, and I get my first goal. And I think, not knowing what to do to celebrate, I run off into the corner. To try and celebrate with Holmesy. I almost jump over him. I jumped that high, and it was kind of just a surreal out-of-body experience. But from there, we have that, and then we go on, and then Coiney gets the winner, and it just makes the day even more special. And to add to that, not that you're paying attention to it, but it's in Wales, it's St George's Day, you've got people in the crowd dressed as Richard III, as knights and stuff like that. It's really a good day, and then we start getting all the trophies, like the foil trophies, getting sent down from the crowd and all this kind of stuff, and it was just a brilliant day. And I just remember afterwards us coming back to Luton in our tracksuits and going out on the night out with our tracksuits on, and Kev luckily knew one of the owners of one of the bars in Luton. I can't remember the name of it, but it was brilliant. What a night and what a season.
I think we've got the Luke's just passed me this. I'm not sure if you can see this. That's
Kev getting done at the back post. Here we go. You'll see me. So Holmesy puts the ball in, stoop at the front post. See you later, Fozzie. And as I run towards him, I nearly jump over him. I didn't know what to do. It was just pure elation, pure excitement. And even on Coiney's goal next, I think my reaction is just, oh my gosh, we've come back, and knowing that this is going to win the league, it was brilliant here. Coiney just addressed it so well, and here I'm just behind him, run towards him, try and grab him, too strong for me, and now I'm just celebrating like a little kid. And it's it's an amazing feeling. But then knowing that you've won, you come back, you've won the game on the day, but you've won the league, and this is my first season in professional football, and I've gone and won the league, and it was unreal. And to do it with, I've always said, it's one thing winning the league with a good group of players that you've all been put together, but to do it with that group, having grown up with them in terms of, like I said, the not the care, but the way that you're moulded by having the Nicos, the Howies, the Matthew Springs before that, the Liam Georges, the Mansells, and all those kind of people that you go up to the first team and you have those interactions with, to then do it with those players in the first team, as well as playing alongside my good mate Kev, right side, strong side, the whole season, just made it even more special, because that level of, yes, I want to win a game of football, I want to help my teammate, but knowing it's Kev and Kev knowing it's me gave me the extra edge, because I don't want anyone to question us as a young partnership on this right hand side of the defence, and it almost made it a little bit more of a conquest to make sure that we're the strongest in this group. And fortunately we were very strong that season, and I think from the team of the season you see that a lot of people thought Luton players did really well.
unbelievable. I mean, I think you always, I always say this as well, like, I think you're always playing your best football when you're playing with a group of people, especially with your mates, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been great. It must have been like that, especially like you're talking about. You were like 19, 20 that season, playing alongside Nico and Steve Howard, experienced players as well, and to be mates as well as them, even though they're quite a bit older than you at the time.
Yeah, I think it's a level of you're playing with your friends, so you have that kind of level of respect for one another.
You don't let each other down, do you?
Yeah, but that's it. It's the level of respect where nobody's going to get on you too hard, but at the same time there's an expectation because, like I say, I want to go to war with that group. So if I'm not doing it, they need to pull me up on it. If someone else isn't doing it, and that's kind of where I started to get my leadership role from, is just because it's Howie or Nico, if they give a ball away, I'm still allowed to say something to them and they'll accept it. Don't get me wrong, Nico not all the time in terms of in the right way, but as long as you're not like effing and blinding and swearing and all that, and you say, come on Nico, need a better pass or whatever, that's the way we had, and that's what we had. But that was because of the standards we set ourselves through the season. You were able to have those relationships, whereas maybe you're going through a bit of a tough time and you pick someone out, they'll think you're having a dig. Well, actually no, Nico was an unbelievable player and had run the show for us all season. Howie was an unbelievable player, had scored 20 odd goals. So appreciating each other for what we'd done, but also appreciating that the standards have been set, so keep those standards up. And I think that was a big learning thing for me. Is like, whilst I was doing well, I wasn't allowed to down tools ever. Because I had Coyne beside me, I had Marlon Beresford behind me, reminding me of that. Maybe not Kev, because Kev's a bit quieter and me and Kev obviously were tight. But I had those reminders of the standards that you set yourself. It's just a case of, you've made a rod for your own back now. So you've set yourself this standard, adhere to it. And throughout my Luton career, it just seemed that I always just got better and better and better, rather than kind of a decline in ability.
And I guess it shows, if you work hard, success is breeded from that, isn't it? And end of the season, a topsy-turvy game against Brentford actually Doncaster was the last game, but the last home game to lift the title, a special day. Yeah,
it was again topsy-turvy, Brentford going up, and they were kind of like they were our rivals because they were one of the teams that were vying for promotion as well, but we had almost a bit of bad blood, I think, because we lost to them 2-0 at their place in the league, lost them 2-0 in the FA Cup at home, so it's kind of like we felt like we owed them one. And I just remember getting beaten up by Marcus Gale the first half. Literally, he's winning every header, he's smashing me with elbows, and it's like, I'm trying to be the brave one and try and get myself, and it's not working. And I remember Newley pulling me at half time, he goes, are you going to get yourself together and win an effing header, blah, 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 like literally at me. I'm like, oh, hang on. So come to terms with, all right, if I can't win a header, I'm not going to necessarily like overly compete. I'm going to, and then I measured it, and then from there I did a lot better. But I needed that rocket from Newley to get me going.
Love the fact, just by the way, that's the mentality. You've already won the league.
Yeah.
Not necessarily don't have to win this game.
Yeah.
But that's the standards that's been set.
But my personal standards are, I've set myself this level in League One. This is albeit older, a former Premier League player that's given me a lesson now. If I want to be a better player and want to kick on to the Championship where we're going to go next year, I need to be able to compete with these players. And it was a big lesson for me that day from him. I had one earlier in the season from Jason Lee in terms of that physicality lesson. I'd been okay in terms of I can head a ball and I'm not scared of a tackle. But when someone's experienced, they know how to head the ball, they know when to jump, when not to jump, when to lean into you. You had to learn quick because those two are excellent at having been former Premier League players. And it was a big thing. But that's, like I say, Newley had that kind of level to him. And then we came out, we were better, and we ended up going on to win that game and make it a happy trophy lift. And unfortunately I was injured for the last game against Doncaster, which I think if I'd been fit we would have got the 100 points, if I'm just saying. But yeah, I got a dead leg in training. So obviously about an hour before we travel, and travelling all the way up to Doncaster from Luton was a good 3 hours. So whilst I was on the bus, this leg was twice the size of my other leg, and it just didn't go down. So it was kind of, I couldn't play, unfortunately. But yeah, gutted to miss out on the last day in terms of playing. Gutted to miss out on the 100 points. But to see the season out, 98 points, only 6 defeats, as you said. 6 of us in the team of the season, myself getting player of the division, it was a dream first year, and something that, like, as I say, I have these fond memories, vivid memories, even though it's 20 years ago, that literally it's just like it was yesterday, and it goes so quick.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, how often do you think about it? But actually, obviously, then the following season you're transferred very early on in the season to West Brom. Were you aware of that? What was your expectation going into that start of that season? Obviously, testing yourself at a high level, but were you aware that other clubs were sniffing around, that you might get a move?
So at the time, I didn't have an agent, so I wasn't really aware. I remember Newley saying to me before that, a few clubs are here to watch you. Never said the clubs, but when we were in League One, a few clubs are here to watch you. Like, how do you handle that pressure? So almost like pointing it on me again, like, raise your level. These clubs are here to watch you, which some managers would actually ward away from that because it might make me play within my shell.
But he knew that was your personality.
He knew that was my character, so he did that. And so I knew there was interest, but didn't know who, because I didn't have an agent. We go into the next season, I'm just buzzing to be in the Championship. I just want to play in the Championship, want to show my talents in the Championship. All I kept doing was looking for when the fixtures drop. Every day, it's like, okay, so they're dropping on this day. As soon as they came out, I'm literally there like a kid with the new school shoes or the new school bag or whatever. Palace just been relegated, first day of the season, playing against Emerson Boyce coming back, and a good family friend of mine, Fitzhall. Second game, Southampton, who have just been relegated, like 2 massive games straight away. Then Leeds at Kenny, third game of the season. You're like, they're the first 3 games in the Championship, having only just had a season League One. So effectively, I'm playing against Premier League teams straight away. So I was like, well, if you're going to hit the ground running, these are the games to do it in. And we go to that game against Palace away. Andy Johnson's just scored 20 goals in the Premier League. Do really well. He does score in the game, but do really well in the game. We win that game 2-1. Burko with a bit of magic. The Southampton game, topsy-turvy, fantastic game of football. Dean Morgan pops up with a worldie, win the game 3-2. And then we have a draw with Leeds 0-0 at home. But you're like, we've just come from League One, having not had the expectation to get promoted, but kind of got it done quite easily in the end. We've come into the Championship. We've now won 2 against former Premier League teams and drawn with Leeds, who were Premier League the year before that. Like, we're all right here.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, not naively, but because of what we did the year before when we maybe didn't have that expectation, but because of how the first few games went, you have that little bit of, oh, what if? And then, and then we went on, I think the rest of the games, we lost to Stoke away. Remember Dave Brammer scoring a worldie, Cowie got sent off. Yeah. So that was a frustrating one. But we beat Leicester away 2-0. I remember playing against Dion Dublin and Paul Dickoff, again, talking about that level of Premier League strikers. How will I adapt to what they do? Did really well in that game. And then the final game, playing against Millwall. And not knowing it's going to be my last game, but scoring in a 2-1 win. And that was all she wrote. I think I remember after the game being asked in interviews, about your contribution to Luton, and would this be the end of what we see of Curtis Davies? And I kind of was like so naive to it. All I'd ever seen is players in interviews talking about, I've got a contract here. So I kind of went along the lines like, no, I haven't heard anything. I've got a contract.
Genuinely hadn't?
Yeah, but I genuinely hadn't, because I don't have an agent.
Kevin Foley was the same. When he went to Wolves, he was the same.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, didn't have an agent. So I was like, genuinely, I've got a contract here. I'm loving playing here. I love it here. And I've heard nothing. So I kind of went along those lines. And then literally, I'm shopping in Romford with a few of my friends, and on deadline day, and the manager calls me and tells me that they've accepted a bid from West Brom, and it'd be in my interest to go and speak to him. So I was like, okay, and from there, I ended up moving to West Brom, and it was just, again, like that. It was like, there's my Luton career done. It was really emotional because it's almost like your first love. There was like an attachment to Luton. So even whatever opportunities I could, I was coming back to watch either home games, or I was watching. I remember watching a game at Wolves when I was living in the Midlands and stuff like that. So that separation kind of was tough for me at first because of that group that I'd grown up with, and I was fine in terms of being on my own in terms of Birmingham and making new friends, but just loving that group and wanting to be part of that. So we're so invested in their success, and like when the Liverpool FA Cup game and all stuff like that, like so invested in it. So it was hard to take because it happened so quickly. But you know, for my career, it was the best thing, and I went on to be a Premier League player.
Exactly, and I think everyone appreciates like every. I mean, everyone loves like one of their own, don't they? That come through, and you're no different. And everyone has followed your career as it's progressed. Did you also look back on, because I think within a few seasons of after you'd left, that team that we're talking about got broken up, and you know, a few years later, we're in the conference. That
was the sad part. When you look at what we built, not we, but as a group of players, to get us to that championship level with a lot of, like I say, a lot of frees, a lot of young lads that have come through the team. You know, there was a good platform there for the club to stabilise and build into a solid championship team, if not, hopefully one day a team that could challenge for the Premier League. But unfortunately, as well documented, the likes of, I went for 3 million, Kev went for around 2.5, Leon went for about 2.5, Viney went for 3 million, Nico went for 1 million, Howie went for 1 million. All this money came in. Carlos Edwards went for a few million. All that money came in, and unfortunately disappeared. So when you look at it that way and you think of what could have been, you know, from the 3 million that they sold me for, fair enough, replacing me would have been difficult. But in terms of, you had Marcus Heikkinen, brilliant defender, and then it's like, right, can we add 3 or 4 with that 3 million to bolster the squad and make it better? And it just never happened, never materialised, and that was the big thing. It kind of, I think the manager went on the books later on saying, you know, he's losing the likes of a Rowan Vine for 3 million, and he's buying, with all due respect, a Drew Tilbert for, at the time, for maybe 150 grand. He said it's not adding up, and unfortunately that was the downfall of the club, and it started to look very murky. But yeah, you are heavily invested, and as I said, it's like a family member. It's not like, again, somebody that you knew. It's like a family member. So when bad things happen to them, you take it personally, especially, like say, the role that you played as a free bit of money for the club in terms of £3 million. To see that squandered and the club down into the conference was just was very difficult. But yeah, but then to see him rise again like the Phoenix was even better. And last year, well, the year before, shall we say, to see him get to the Premier League. I remember being on holiday in Turkey, and I'm meant to be getting my kids ready. My girls have got curly hair, so brushing their hair is a nightmare after getting out of the bath. And I'm meant to be brushing their hair, and I'm watching the game like against Coventry in the final. And obviously, first of all, you see locks go down, and you're like, oh my gosh, the emotion of that. And then you see a goal, and you're like, you don't know what to think. Like, what's going to happen? Are Luton going to be in the Prem? And it's like, yeah, it was unreal. What an occasion! I wish I was there to have soaked it up with those Luton fans. But yeah, what an occasion, and what a time. And unfortunately now we find ourselves back in the Championship. But it's just about rebuilding now. Lost a lot of key players, lost a lot of important players to what we did last year in the Premier League. But there's still the bones of a squad that can compete. There needs to be a reality kind of check. It's not going to be as easy to get back to the Premier League with the type of budget that Luton are spending compared to others. But at the same time, there is going to be expectation because these lads have done it before, and they've had a Premier League season where some of them excelled. So I think it's just about balancing that expectation with the reality of what's in the squad against what we did last year and what we did the year before. But hopefully, like I say, at the moment it's a bit of a sticky time, but hopefully the team come through it and start doing better and start pushing back up the league.
Just to finish it off then, season and a bit at Luton Town 20 odd years ago, then to go on and have the career that you had, scoring an FA Cup final. There's a lot of important goals you scored in your career. Yeah. I mean, that first one was a left foot one, and you were in 16, 17. But what did you learn? What were the moments you remember most about Luton Town? The things that stick out, not necessarily games, but just kind of what you've learned and how you took that on into the rest of your career and kind of guided you through it.
I think the first thing was John Moore. his guidance as a mentor, as a coach, kind of the preparing you for first team football environment was key. You know, fair enough, you go and clean Nico's boots, you clean Springer's boots, whoever, and if you don't do them right, they're going to have a go at you. That's one thing. But John was very testing. He liked to do little tests, and I always got this story about John that kind of made me realise how much man management plays into football. I went to my car once. I lived on Stockwood Drive and Stockwood Park, and I slipped going to my car. It was dark. Slipped going to my car and bashed my knee. The next day, similar to what my quad, it blew up after I slept. Went into training, like to John, I can't bend my leg, so I won't be able to. Like they're saying, I can't be involved tomorrow. So John came to see me. He goes, "Oh yeah, I've been told you hurt your leg." He goes, "Oh yeah, well done." It's like, what? John, I slipped going to my car. He goes, "Ah yeah, of course, yeah, you don't care." I went, "John, no. I slipped going to my car, like, what can I do? It was dark." Like, "Nah, you don't want to be a player. You don't care enough." I said, "John, I'm desperate to be there. I want to be there. They've told me I'm getting louder now. I'm getting a bit irate." He's like, "No, you don't care." And in the end, me and John are that close face to face, effing and blinding at each other. And it's kind of like, oh my God, what have I just done? I'm a youth team player and I've just shouted at my youth team manager that way. And I was on tees. So John said to one of the other lads, "Tell Curtis to bring me a cup of tea." So I don't know if he expected me to spit in it or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I literally went away, made it well like I did, you know, perfect brew for how John liked it, 1 sugar, whatever, blah, blah. Took it into him straight away. I was like, "John, so sorry, I swore. I should never do that to you. That was disrespectful." And Reece goes, No, son. At least I know you care."
Brilliant.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So he challenged me saying I didn't care, and because I bit his head off, it showed I did. So nowadays, unfortunately, that would be called bullying, because he was telling me I didn't care and like maybe saying I'm not going to be a player and stuff like that. It'd be called, but that was so, for my character, he knew me, that I was going to get a rise out of me. And whilst I couldn't play in the game, he managed to invest a little bit of something into me for that weekend that I'm going to come out of it better. And John was just constantly having little things like that, and always testing you, be it ability-wise, be it character-wise. Always had different little tasks to do. You know, the famous Oak Road stand, we had to a little volleys gym, head tennis gym, and he said, "Oh, we're over there in the afternoon," which we'd all be buzzing, like we're going to play head tennis in the afternoon. Got over there, John's got a standing knife, he's cutting up the carpet. What our job is, no, we're over there, but we're going to log the carpet from the oak end to obviously the far end where the bins are, and we're going to take the carpets up. And that was, again, we were having to muck in together, 2 by 2, carrying these big rolls of carpet up and down the stands, blah, blah, blah. And it's just character building. Like, there's nothing like it. And like I say, when you go into the first team, it's almost easy, because it's like, well, I'm not doing all these jobs. I'm not having to do all these teas. I'm not having to, I guess, have these tests. The real test is now, how do I handle first team football? How do I handle being criticised by my teammate? But because of the way John was, and I always said with John, it's like, it's the best piece of advice I've ever had in my life was from John Moore. When you think you're doing well, try harder. And I think that stuck with me throughout my whole career, and I always say it to anyone that wants to hear it, because I think that was always a big thing for me, is like I said about me doing well in the team, I'd established myself, yes, but I want to get to that next level, because you've made your reputation, you need to better it, and yeah, John, I said to you off air, I said, other than my dad, is the biggest influence on my football career, and yeah, he meant a lot to me, and his guidance was second to none.
I've got a lot to thank John for at Luton Town, and got a lot to thank you for as well, Curtis. Thanks for your time.
No problem.
This morning, mate.
Top man.
Top man.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.